What's up, my dudes? Coming back to you guys a little bit farther out in the future than what I really wanted to. I had to take a couple weeks break just to catch up on some college and some work and a few other things that were going on in my life. But I finally found the time to get back to editing, to get back to producing videos and sending them out to you guys. Today we're going to be looking at day 4 of my move from Tacoma, Washington down to Tampa, Florida. It was by far the most technical day that I've had up to this point, and it really was a mental struggle getting through this day. I started off the day in San Rafael. I stopped there because I wanted to be able to go through the Golden Gate Bridge and not risk going over it at night and missing some beautiful scenery, and I'm really glad that I did. But because I did, I wound up having to wait a little bit later in the day so I didn't hit the high volume traffic going into San Francisco as everybody was going to work. Doing that kind of put me on the later end, going in through another obstacle that I really underestimated and didn't take into account when I was planning this trip out, and that is going through the Big Sur. All in all, it wasn't a bad day to start it off. It actually wasn't that chilly. Got that nice Southern California or mid-Southern California, however you want to say it, weather going on. I kept my winter gloves on just because it did get a little chilly. You can only take so much wind hit your hands before your bones just get cold. But thankfully it wasn't too bad, and by the time I got to Monterey, I actually switched to gloves for a little bit. Day 4 was also the day that I transitioned officially from Highway 101 to Highway 1. I initially wanted to do Highway 1 a little bit sooner, as soon as I possibly could, but because of everything going on, I did not plan out the route well, and I didn't use my time properly, so I wound up not being able to do that on day 3. But enough of me yapping my jaws, let's get to it. Alright, a few hundred miles later, I'm in Monterey at this point, but I did get to go through the Golden Gate Bridge. It actually wasn't all that terrible to get across. The traffic there was a lot of traffic going on, but it wasn't so much that it made me nervous. One thing I can tell motorcycle riders who are going over the Golden Gate Bridge is be prepared for the wind. Even when it's calm seas and there's no real storm coming through, there's a lot of wind that comes on bridges. And if you're not prepared for it, or you're not on a heavy enough bike, or you just don't have enough weight to counteract it, or you're not ready, it can definitely cause some serious damage to your motorcycle if you have an accident, or even worse. Another thing for anybody that's going over the Golden Gate Bridge, there is a very high toll to go across this thing going into San Francisco. I'm not a stranger to toll roads, and I've seen some high ones in the $4 and $5 region, but I paid almost $10 just to get across the Golden Gate Bridge. Experience-wise, yeah, it was probably, I would do it again in a heartbeat, but to do that every day, to live on the other side of the bridge and go into San Francisco, that's just absolutely insane. I understand why they do it, because the bridge needs to be maintained constantly because of the seawater and it's constantly being painted, but Jesus, $8 for a toll, just absolutely crazy. One thing that's not really that big of a deal, but it is to me just because movies lied to me. I've never been to California up until now, and every movie I've ever seen or remember seeing has depicted as the Redwoods being very close to San Francisco and just on the other side of the bridge. And it might have been at some point in the past, but it is not now. But like I said, not a big deal, and just something that had gotten my hopes up and was kind of a letdown. Those of you that are tourists and looking to go to the area, I will say make sure that you use your maps to get to the tourist center for the Golden Gate Bridge. No matter which side you're on, it's going to be absolutely confusing because they try to make sure the flow of traffic can stay right. So if you're trying to get to it, there's no real easy way. It took me like 10-20 minutes just to find the way to get there, and I had to literally ask directions because even my GPS wasn't going to get me where I wanted to go. But all in all, it was worth it. I'm glad I got to experience that. I'm a complete and total architecture nerd. Things that are that big and are built like that are just amazing, especially for the time periods that these structures were built in. Let's talk about the next big goal that's going on for this day, the Big Sur. To get to the Big Sur, you got to go through Monterey. Take Highway 1 right down through it, Monterey is absolutely a beautiful city to go through. I wish I could have spent a little bit more time there, maybe spent the night. Maybe at some point. The beaches, just absolutely gorgeous. It did kind of mark the transition point between Highway 101 and Highway 1. Now, for those of you that's looking to go through Monterey and visit the Big Sur, I definitely recommend staying in Monterey. Going through the Big Sur, if you're in a car, it might not be so bad, but for you motorcycle riders, it takes a little while to get through Big Sur. It's a lot of mileage and there's not a whole lot to it as far as infrastructure. There's no cell service, there's no Wi-Fi, there's hardly any gas stations. It would really be best if you did the entire Big Sur as a day project. If you got to the other end, whatever end you're on, and you find yourself with more time to keep riding, do so, but don't start the Big Sur late in the day. But that's enough of that. Let's go see it. Alright guys, I think that's going to about do it for this video. As you can see, it was kind of getting dark. As in all my videos, anytime I take a day trip, I try not to ride in the dark. And I really don't like recording in the dark. So at this point, this was the final bit of footage that I can really use. Because once this battery died out about 10-15 minutes later, I wasn't stopping again, just put another battery in. There's not a whole lot you can see it in the dark with the GoPros, so it's just not worth my time. But a little bit of advice for the people that are doing the Big Sur. I've given to you just a little bit ago earlier in the video, but I'm gonna hit it again. Big Sur is a very technical road. It is not meant for beginners. If you are a beginner rider and you are attempting this yourself, kudos to you. I hope you make it safe, but I would highly recommend that you take somebody else with you. There are techniques that you just might not be able to comprehend yet, or might not have mastered or perfected, that are really going to help you. With slow speed and luck, yes, you can get through it. I'm not telling you that you can't. I'm telling you that you probably shouldn't. You're putting yourself in a risky situation that you just shouldn't get into. There's always motorcycle riders going up and down the Big Sur, and I guarantee you there's going to be somebody that goes your speed, and that if you ask and talk to them a little bit, they'll be more than happy to let you tag along. For anybody, motorcycle riders, car riders, no matter what skill level you are, try not to travel at night. These are very, very, very windy roads. I'm talking 10-15 mile an hour going around a sharp curve in the middle of the night when the roads are just absolutely trash. Sometimes you don't have guardrails. That's all it is to keep you going off the cliff, is a rock around the side just to let you know, hey, there's a drop off right here. And speaking of the roads, like any road that's been around for a long time, and especially one that's been highly traveled like Highway 1 is, especially around Big Sur, it's very hard to get to maintain. So they don't get to fixing them that often, and usually around the corners, especially around the corners, the roads kind of get bumpy, they get worn down, they get degraded, and if you're not careful, you can find yourself in a difficult position very early on, or in a position you really don't want to be in. Make matters worse, there's always asshats in sports cars and sports bikes going around these corners that don't know what they're doing. They're going to cut the corner as close as they can into your lane, or they're just going to cut into your lane, period. They're trying to play fast and furious, and they just don't have the skill level. So they have to compensate, and a lot of times that winds up putting you in a very risky and dangerous situation that you need to prepare yourself for. And lastly, and one of the most important things, plan your fuel stops. Stop in Monterey. Stop right before the Big Sur and fill up your bike, fill up your car, your truck, whatever you're driving. There are very few, if any, gas stations along this route. I think I counted 3 kind of towards the middle. There was a Shell, a Chevron, and a local gas station that had a hotel next to it. But I stopped there mainly because the Shell and the Chevron were out of gas. And when I asked about it, they said sometimes the fuel trucks can't get through, especially at night, or the fuel shipment will take a little bit longer to get to them because of where they are, and sometimes the gas stations will run out of gas. So don't take the chance. Make sure you get an extra can of fuel with you, or just fill up right before the Big Sur. Make sure you have the mileage. I don't say all that to scare you guys. I really want to make sure that when you go through, you're good to go and that you know what you're doing. I highly encourage you to take this route. It was a beautiful route to ride. I love doing it. I'll do it again, but just make sure you plan your trip out. And with that, guys, I'll see you guys in the next one.